A magnitude 7.0 earthquake has just hit off the coast of Northern California. Another earthquake as well registering 5.0. It's prompted a rare tsunami warning for coastal areas near the California-Oregon state line, including the San Francisco Bay Area.
You see that map right there, all those aftershocks. Over 10 have been reported so far. One of the strongest ones happened just about 10 minutes ago, a 5.0 just off the shoreline. You see that larger orange circle well offshore. That's that 7.0 that happened at 10:44 this morning. That was the large one. Now those aftershocks are slowly starting to creep closer to the San Andreas fault line, which is highlighted in that light red color along the California coast. So there are a lot of developments happening right now.
This is Ferndale, so very close to the epicenter of the strongest quake that happened this morning. And then, of course, there were the subsequent aftershocks that we've been feeling.
We're getting a lot more of these quakes happening right at that very northern edge of the San Andreas Fault. Now, mind you that this all connects with that Pacific Rim, that ring of fire that goes all the way around the Pacific Ocean, and is a very active seismic region, but we don't quite often see them this strong. So this happening this morning is of big significance here, as we are seeing this 6.6 and then quite a few happening after that.
This actually happened off the coastline of Northern California. For a little bit of reference here, you have Redding right here, San Francisco down to the south. And so this was off the coastline. This is a 7.0 earthquake.
As of right now, we're up to 60, actually 61 for the one that's not within this query box. But we have seen a lot of shaking offshore, and a few of them have been over land as well for Northern California. And the reason why we see this as a very active tectonic area is because we have the meeting of all of these plates, from the North American plate to the Pacific plate. And we have that where all of the land comes together and creates some very active seismic regions for the area.
So it's a very significant earthquake. It's been more than 30 years since we've seen an earthquake of this size in this region of Northern California.
The first video, this is from the Victoria Inn in Ferndale. You can see that door has collapsed, the glass is shattered, all the bar items and the drinks and the liquor, that has all fallen down. This is in Ferndale.
A still shot there. There's the video. Yeah, so that's obviously sloshing around Kiana. And to an extent, that's the concern that could happen on a much broader scale out in the Pacific Ocean.
Exactly, and that's why we did have those warnings up. And this is a major earthquake, and I'm sure a lot of the times across the West Coast, they do get these more frequent, but this is a big deal.
Yes, this is, you said it, up into the major category for an earthquake. Thankfully, this was offshore, not by a huge margin, but it was offshore. We're just getting word from Dylan and Weather Command. There was a magnitude 5.0 aftershock being felt. Dylan, that was offshore as well? Okay.
A 7.0 is exceptionally rare, considering that across the entire world, we typically average only about 18 of these a year. So for California, relatively rare. But this is the 7.0 off the coastline.
Just to give you a comparison about, how unusual this is. On our planet, every year, we only have 18 earthquakes this strong. And this one just happened just off the California coast.
Here's what we know, saying the quake was centered off the coast of Eureka, California. That's near the border with Oregon, not too far away from Portland, but it was felt as far
Capitola
away.
PD.
All right, as we're covering some of their news coverage here, felt as far away as the San Francisco Bay Area. And then there was a second 5.8 magnitude quake that struck just north of San Francisco.
This is in Redway in Humboldt County. This was actually taken by the fire chief up there. You can see all the cans and all the goods have come down off the shelves. So you can only imagine what that earthquake must have felt like as that shaking was happening of a 7.0 earthquake.
And the tsunami warning that's been issued for Northern California coastline, the Oregon coastline. This earthquake was on what we call a strike-slip fault, where plates are sliding past one another. It's not the San Andreas. It was about 60 kilometers offshore. And so that helps because it's further away from population centers, and the sort of movement that we see is less likely to cause a major tsunami. But any earthquake of this size can trigger landslides beneath the ocean or landslides onshore that can cause localized tsunamis.
Okay, Robert, you know, we're talking about the damage and all. Back in 2022, the Humboldt area also had an earthquake, 6.4. 17 people died in that one. I mean, so we are talking about big numbers here. Are you at all surprised that California got a 7.0 this time around?
Can you tell me how seismically active that part of the U.S. is, John?
Yeah, it's one of the most seismically active. It's as I mentioned, it's not the San Andreas Fault, but it's the southern end of what we call the Cascadia subduction zone, where ocean plates are being pushed beneath Northern California, Oregon, Washington, and here in southern British Columbia as well. So it's a part of a very large plate tectonic system where ocean plates are moving towards the continent. So it is extremely active. We see magnitude 4 or 5 earthquakes on a regular basis along that fault zone where today's earthquake occurred. The big magnitude 7s are not as common, but every 20, 30 years we see those larger offshore earthquakes.
Yeah, Sandra, this was a big earthquake by any standard. 7.0 is a major earthquake. It was not far off the coast of Eureka, California. That is close to the border with Oregon, and it's about 270 miles or so north of San Francisco. So a big distance. So tsunami, anything generated by that earthquake would take some time to reach San Francisco. So these tsunami alerts went out very quickly, as they tend to now, on social media and straight to the texts of a lot of residents in Northern California and in the southern portion of Oregon there. You're just, as I mentioned, just south of the border with Oregon, Eureka, as you look at it right there. What is interesting about this earthquake, Sandra, as well, is it was very shallow. What we were told originally from the USGS is it might have been as shallow as just about half a mile. And the shallowness of an earthquake is very significant in terms of the damage it does, the strength it delivers. So that is significant here, and that is why so many tsunami alerts have been put out for so many communities right now, Sandra.
Okay, Jonathan Hunt, keep us posted as we continue to get these live pics out of California.
Once again, we monitor the San Andreas Fault here in parts of the Bay Area that extends all the way up and down the coast, because the last major earthquake we had was in 1906, and that was a 7.9. And we know that that caused a lot of destruction as well as casualties during that time. And at that time, it was at about $400,000 of damage. So we talked earlier with Dave from the Tsunami Warning Center, who said that a 7 in the water is not that significant. It's kind of on the lower end of what they warn for a tsunami. But if a 7 happened over land, that would be just devastating, especially since we haven't seen anything like this happen anytime recently.